What's up, guys? So what I want to look at in today's video is I want to look at this concept in the Epistle to the Romans from St. Paul of how important church unity, in fact, is. And in fact, I would argue here, as would N.T. Wright, that the majority of the thrust of the Epistle to the Romans is about the new Christian community being in communion with one another, being in unity. Okay, and that's what we see going on throughout the letter. And so real quick, I want to break some of that down. Now, if you like the contents of this channel, keep in mind that a subscription can really help us. We're a young channel moving on to 300, but if you feel so moved, a subscription can really help us. So I want to give a plug for that. Okay, so what's going on in the book of Romans to just this is too simple of a breakdown, but hopefully it at least helps a little bit with the framework. You've got chapters 1 to 5, kind of why people need to repent and need salvation. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 are like the Exodus. You've got baptism, chapter 6, the wilderness wandering, chapter 7, chapter 8 is the new creation moment, the crossing into the land. So you've got the Exodus pattern playing out. And then chapters 9 to 11, you have God talking about how the Jews and Gentiles ultimately both needed to be humbled. And they need, in a sense, I would argue, to learn from one another from that section there. But ultimately, the Jews and the Gentiles both need the forgiveness and mercy of God. And then the remaining chapters are about the practical on-the-ground realities in the church in Rome between the Jews and the Gentiles. So what's going on here is N.T. Wright talks about this as like the Roman Empire wanted so badly to bring unity, right? Unity between these differing groups, but it never could. But it's the Christian church, the Christian community that could. It could bring together different people who wouldn't even in the past eat together and rarely even acknowledge one another. And we kind of take that for granted in the Western world because we're so Christianized, but people oftentimes they were just separate from each other and wouldn't even deal with one another. And it's the drawing together of the community and the unity of that community that can ultimately then be a place where God's will and word and the gospel of Jesus Christ can go forth into the world through the united community. Thus speaking to why church unity is so important. You can also see this in Ephesians, Philippians, Ephesians, Philippians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. You can see this in Galatians, but really just so much in Philemon, so much throughout the New Testament, the writings of St. Paul. It's largely about the unity of the church and how the Christian community needs to be one and why that's so important. And then why God sets up one baptism, one faith, one Lord, one mystery. And so there's something to ponder on for today. How can you as a person live closer to the unity of the church and call others to do so as well? Something to really pray on and ponder today. God's peace, y'all.